Good morning, and today we're going to review some of the things we went over yesterday in Photoshop, and then we're going to show you a new technique for what's called masking, basically erasing the background and combining images together. So let's start over here with the toolbar. Just wanted to point out again that this first section down to this line right here is for selection. What is selected is affected. What is not selected is not affected. And if I simply make a rectangular selection and make a selection like this, I can go to the next section down here, which is our modification tools. And I'm going to select the paintbrush brush tool. Up here in the brush tool, I can change the size of it and whether I want it to have a hard edge or a soft edge. In this case, I'm doing a hard edge. Down here, the paintbrush takes the color right here that you put into the foreground and background color. If I click on that foreground color, I can change that color to anything I want. And if I click on the background color, I can change that color as well. If I want it to be a default, I can click on the default button, and if I want to swap those two, switch foreground and background colors, I can click on the little arrow. The brush pays attention to whatever color you're using in the foreground color. So I'm just going to pick a red, and I'm going to start to color. You'll notice nothing's happening until I reach the area that is selected. So this is what I mean by what is selected is affected. If it's not selected, it's not affected. One of the important things to remember is how to drop a selection, because if I want to go over and work somewhere else, I need to drop this selection first. If I look under my selection menu, I see that deselect is an option on that. So you want to be able to do that. Control D, remember that, so you can deselect. I can also select part of it, and we have been deleting the backgrounds off of pictures in order to combine them together. Today I'm going to show you a new technique, and delete, and it is called masking. Now this involves our layers over here. So I have myself a chair and a tank, and I'm going to put the tank treads onto the chair. So the first thing I want to do is I want to select the layer that I want to talk about. Remember, powerful program but dead stupid. You want to select that particular layer, and then I'm going to use my edit, and I'm going to use transform or free transform, which is Control T. So we want to make sure that we have that tattooed somewhere on our body. Control T gives me the bounding box, and I can grab at the corners. Now, important safety tip, if I grab at the corner, I can make this tall and skinny tank or short and fat tank. Not a big deal, but if I hold the shift key down, then it'll constrain those proportions so that it stays in proportion, doesn't get all funky. So when you're increasing the size on something, you sometimes want to hold down to the shift key in order to make sure that it maintains the size relationship. If you don't want to, then you are going to be able to manipulate that particular image to where you want it to be. If I hold down the command key, or sorry, the control key, that will allow me to break away one of the corners in order to help modify the image so that it fits a little more appropriately with whatever other image I want to put it on there. So I'm going to hit the enter key to activate that transition. Boom, we're done. So now I have it basically in the size I want, but now I'm going to need to get rid of the middle part and just keep the tracks. Now normally we would go along and with our eraser tool or something to that effect, we would be able to come along and start erasing that out. Now that's okay, but if I make a mistake, I can't get any of that back. It's been totally erased from the image. So what I'm going to do is do a system of masking that allows me to make changes back and forth without losing the original image. So I'm just going to Control Z that eraser back. Now down at the bottom of your layers palette, I'm just going to pull the layers palette out here so you can see and drag it down. Down the bottom of this layer palette we have a box with a circle in the middle, and if you cursor over top of it, pops up, says add layer mask. I'm going to, with that layer mask selected, I'm going to click on there. I get an extra window. Now you notice I can switch between the pixels themselves and the layer mask. So I want to make sure that the dimension is on the layer mask, and I'm going to use my brush, and I'm going to make sure that I'm painting with black. So with this side selected, any black that I put out here makes the picture disappear. Okay, now when I mean that exactly the way I said it, it makes the picture disappear. It doesn't actually erase it. You'll notice that the tank is still here, but because this black is on this side, it stops you from seeing that image, which means that I can simply switch back to white on that side and paint that image back in. So this allows me to make changes back and forth until I get it exactly the way I want. One other handy thing when you're combining images together is to drop the opacity on the upper image. This way I'll see exactly where my image is and be able to adjust it so that I can make the seat looks like it's between these two particular things. Now I'm going to make a slight adjustment to my width here just so it lines up a little bit better. There we go. And hit enter to activate that. And so I'm going to go back to my mask side, and I'm going to be painting with black on the mask, and now I can just come along like this, and I've got all of this. It's okay for me to overshoot a bit, not a big deal, because I can always get that back by adjusting the mask. So there we go, we've got that sort of stuff. Now I'll bring this back up so you can see the effect. So there I am, I'm adding tank treads. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to show that image, but I'm going to let it come right up to the edge of the seat so that I have the ability to make it look like this seat now has tank treads. I'll go right along here like this and bring this back a little bit more. Right here where it has the fender on the tank, switch to black to hide it, and like that. So what I want you guys to do today is to play around with the masking technique, and that way you'll be able to go back and forth whenever you need to and make adjustments to the image until it's exactly the way you want it to be. And voila, now I have a lounge chair that goes anywhere.